Welcome back. All right, now recently I talked about Carter Hart, and while I will certainly touch on how his month has gone, I want to talk about just the general complete meltdown by the Philadelphia Flyers and how it could have been predicted if you look at their recent history. And I talked about it during the last offseason, and there were Flyers fans that said, hey, that's not a thing. Basically, that this team misses the playoffs every other year. It seems to be a thing, which would mean if you're Chuck Fletcher, maybe they just bounce back next year and you look smart, not doing much with the team, maybe a couple minor moves here and there, if they continue this fall. Now, before the fall started, February 28th, happier times, at Buffalo, they win 3-0. It's a 28 save shutout for Carter Hart. And it's win number 700 for Alain Vigneault. Things are good, right? There's no doubt that Philadelphia is going to be a playoff team. Sure, which team are they going to bounce out? Maybe it's Boston bounces out, but Philadelphia at that stage looks like a playoff team. Or they look like the team that maybe they do miss the playoffs, and we all talk about how they would have made the playoffs in any other division, right? However, March 2nd at Pittsburgh, they had a 1-0 lead. So I went through all the game data, and I went through and decided, all right, so when did they have leads and where did they lose games that otherwise they should have won? They end up losing that game 5-2 at Pittsburgh. They did outshoot them 42-27 in that game. Carter Hart, his save percentage, .815. It's been poor this month, not just his. Provorov was a -4 in that game. The Penguins on the power play 1-for-3. Since Philadelphia's penalty kill is ranked towards the bottom of the league, I wanted to look at power plays against them this month and how much that's had to do with it. March 4th at Pittsburgh, they trailed 3-0 at 3:57 of the first period. It looked like it was going to happen all over again. However, Elliott picked it up. They end up winning 4-3 in that game. Elliott ends up with an .897 save percentage. Giroux was a +3, and the Penguins go 0-2 on the power play. So no damage done there. March 6th at Pittsburgh, they had a 1-0 lead. They had a 3-2 lead. They end up losing it 4-3. Elliott ends up with an .852 save percentage. The Penguins went 2-for-3 on the power play that night. So the power play for the Penguins was pretty much the reason why they win that game. March 7th at home against Washington, they had a 1-0 lead. They lost the game 3-1. Carter Hart, .889 save percentage in that game. The Capitals only had one power play, and they didn't score on it. March 9th against Buffalo at home. So just think, if they hadn't played Buffalo, their record would probably be worse. They were behind actually 4-2 in that game against Buffalo. They win at 5-4 in a shootout. So they made it dramatic. Hart had a .625 save percentage. Elliott had a .917 save percentage in that game in relief. The Sabres go 0-2 on the power play. But again, Philadelphia does manage to win that game. Shootout and all, but they do get the win. Then they're at home against Washington 2 days later. There was no lead in that game for them. They lost it 5-3. Elliott, .810 save percentage for him. The Capitals go 0-2 on the power play. So the power play has not burned them, as in their penalty kill against opposing power plays, in 3 games. Not too bad, and yet they lost 2 of the 3. So March 13th at home against Washington again. No lead in that game, and they lost 5-4. And this is where the question comes up of, so is this just their opposition? On some level, probably. I mean, here's 3 losses to Washington, right? Elliott, 700 save percentage in that game. Hart, .846. So Hart was better in that game than Elliott, save percentage-wise. March 15th, the Ides of March at New York, they actually win. They had a 2-0 lead. They do lose the lead, but they win it in overtime 5-4. So close call there with the Rangers. Carter Hart, .833 save percentage, and the Rangers go 0-3 on the power play. So, again, no victimization of them on the power play there, even though their penalty kill is towards the bottom of the league. March 17th at the New York Rangers. This is the 9-0 loss. Elliott, .615 save percentage. Hart, .750. And this is where the question comes up. Like, are both of these goaltenders bad? The answer is no. Is Carter Hart young? Absolutely. Is Elliott, not necessarily in his prime? Probably. But I don't think they're that bad. I think this is just an overall meltdown. The Rangers only went 1-for-4 on the power play in that game. It could have been worse. March 18th, so the next night at New York against the Islanders. and they win that one. They had a 3-0 lead. They blew the lead. The Islanders get those 3 goals in a row, but they do win it 4-3 in regulation. Carter Hart, .880 save percentage. The Islanders went 0 for 2 on the power play. So again, not necessarily as damaging that penalty kill this month as you might think when you're looking at their overall numbers. March 20th at New York against the Islanders. They lost 6-1 in that one. Carter Hart, .786 save percentage, and the Islanders 1 for 2 on the power play. March 22nd at home against the Islanders. They led that one 1-0. They lose 2-1 in overtime. Elliott, .900 save percentage in that game. The Islanders 0 for 1 on the power play because they just don't get power plays. And then March 23rd at home against the New Jersey Devils. They had no leads in that game. They lost 4-3. Carter Hart, .875 save percentage. The Devils went 1 for 4 on the power play. And then last night, as I'm recording this, last night the Rangers beat them 8-3. And there were no leads in that one. Hart, .545 save percentage. Elliott, .727. And the Rangers went 3 for 5 on the power play. This is a team that if, they were getting leads here, and they haven't been getting leads as often recently, at least in their last 4 games, right? They had the 1-0 lead against the Islanders. They lose that one 2-1 in overtime. So, this is a problem. And again, their opposition, clearly the Rangers at this point are a bad matchup for the Flyers, right? So, in March, if we look at the players on this team, kind of the key guys you're looking at, I didn't do them in any particular order. Hayes, 14 games in March, 3 goals, 4 assists, and he's a -5. -5, again, plus minus is all relative. So relative to some of the other important players on the team, his is actually better. Provorov, 14 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. He's a -6 in March. Keep in mind he's a -4 in that game. So he's only been a -2 since then. So Provorov, the overall numbers haven't been as bad. Farabee, 13 games, 6 goals, 4 assists. That's good, but the -8, that's on the wrong side of things. Voracek, 14 games, 2 goals, 10 assists. He's a -10 this month. So it's been a frustrating month for Voracek. Claude Giroux, 14 games, 7 goals, 4 assists for him, and a -8. So they're important players. They're on the ice a lot. I get that part, but there's just too many goals going in the net when they're on. And Couturier, 13 games, 4 goals, 8 assists for 12 points. He's a -4 on the month. And, of course, he's one of the best defensive forwards in the league. And that's always open for debate when we talk about best defensive forwards in the league. But he's one of the best. And so it is alarming that he's also a minus on the month. But when you look at the overall scores, it's not that surprising. So my point kind of is it's kind of a whole team thing that's going on here. Where you're probably not getting as many goals from Hayes as you'd want over 14 games. But it's just been meltdowns for Philadelphia. And this is the kind of thing that normally would lead to a coach being on the hot seat. I'm not going to say getting fired yet, but if they miss the playoffs, does Vigneault end up being out of a job? That's, I think, a reasonable ask for a team that has higher expectation right now. Their upcoming schedule, a lot of ones on here. They've only got one back-to-back on here. Over their next 10, they're at home against the Rangers for one more. Yep, they got the Rangers one more time. Then they're at Buffalo for 2, which might be a chance for the Flyers to reset and get themselves on their feet. But then they have to play at New York against the Rangers for 1. Then they're at Boston before they're at home against Boston. That's a back-to-back, at and then at home. And then they're at New York against the Islanders before they go home for 1 against Boston. Then they have 1 at home against Buffalo. And then they're at Washington. So that's their next 10 games. They really need to win those games against the Rangers. Because what's happening now is they've got the same record as the Rangers. The Rangers are on their way up. The Flyers clearly on their way down and in some state of disarray. Their goals against average currently sits at 3.66. That is 30th in the National Hockey League in goals against, only above the Senators. And the Senators have actually been trending in the right direction, I'll say, over the last 10 games. So it's possible the Flyers, if this doesn't turn around, they could end up being 31st in goals against average in the league. Their penalty kill, 72.7%. It's actually 28th in the National Hockey League. But as I've pointed out here, it hasn't really hurt them that much in a majority of their losses. It's, like here you've got the Rangers 3 out of 5. You have the Pens here 2 out of 3. But in a lot of these games, they're not allowing power play goals. They're not giving up too many power plays, right? So in January they were 7-2-1. In February 4-2-2. Things look pretty good. And in March they're 4-9-1. It's just dropped right off. It's alarming. And yet this is a team that they showed last season they can turn it on. At the time that the league went on pause last year, the Flyers were number 1 on my power rankings. And it wasn't really all that close. They were playing so well, the winning streaks, everybody looked really confident, everything looked good. So they're currently 3 points behind Boston. They've played 3 more games than Boston. So exactly the same for the Rangers. 3 points behind Boston, played 3 more games. The difference right now is the confidence level seems to be a lot higher on the Rangers than it is for the Flyers. And here's where it's weird, right? So if you look at their playoffs recently, 2013, no playoffs. They were 4th in the Atlantic Division. They moved to the Metro. 2014, they're 3rd in the Metro. They lose in round 1. 2015, no playoffs. They were 6th in the conference or in the division that year. 2016, they're 5th in the division, but they qualify as a wild card. They lose in round 1. 2017, no playoffs. They are 6th in the division. 2018, they were 3rd in the division. They lost in round 1. 2019, no playoffs. They were 6th in the division. 2020, they were 2nd in the division. They get to round 2. And now this year, we're looking at 2021. They could very well finish 6th in the division and miss the playoffs. 6th, 6th, 6th. It is the weirdest thing. 2015, 2017, 2019, possibly 2021, the Flyers end up 6th in the division. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could. They're tied for 5th right now with the Rangers. And it just feels like this has spiraled completely out of control. Now, Hart takes a lot of the blame, and I'm going to say it again, he's 22 years of age. He's very young. So he's got a long career ahead of him. And I remember when Marc-Andre Fleury early in his career was seen as probably a bust and all the losing in Pittsburgh was going to destroy him. He ended up being pretty good. So, and he was never a Vezina winner. If Fleury wins the Vezina this year, that would be the first time he's ever won it. So I think people are a little too hard on Hart. So let's talk about it. And I want to compare him to Elliott as well. Hart's numbers have gone down a lot. He had a .900 save percentage in January. He was 4-2-1. In February, he was 2-1-2 with an .897 save percentage. So that's a drop. And then this month, 2-6 in March, and his save percentage .815. It has been a precipitous drop for him. But Elliott, he's 3-0 in January, .932 save percentage. 2-1 in February with a .929 save percentage. This month, 2-3-1, so his win-loss record's a little better. But his save percentage is .825. So he's only 10 percentage points above Hart this month. So, again, you can either make up your mind whether you go, okay, so that's garbage goaltending or it's garbage defense. And I'll straight out say it's been both. There are teams that have been allowed to get really good looks at the net and get off some pretty fantastic shots and beat Elliott or Hart, whoever's in the net. But it's been kind of a collaborative effort. And then we look at teams, you know, that they're against and which teams goalies have better numbers against. Against New Jersey, Hart's save percentage is .924. Elliott's is .885. Against the Islanders, Elliott wins there with a .911 to the .864 for Hart. Versus the Rangers, neither goaltender has a good number against the Rangers, which will surprise no one that watches this video. .821 for Hart, .784 for Elliott. So when we go into that next game against the Rangers and like they're starting Carter Hart, everybody's like, why would they do that? Well, his numbers are still better than Elliott's against the Rangers. I don't know. Against Pittsburgh, the better numbers are Hart, .894 to .875 on that one. Against Boston, Elliott's higher there. .914 for him, .843 for Hart. A couple lopsided losses in there too. And then against Buffalo, that favors Elliott, .967 to .879 for Hart. Against Washington, Hart's got the better numbers, .883 to .774. It's been quite the trip so far this month with the Flyers. It's not over yet, but we'll see. We'll see just whether or not they can dig their way out of this. So that's the question I have for people watching this. If you're the general manager of the Flyers right now, what do you do? And is it a matter of saying, you know what, this season's just not going to happen? And then you look at potentially renting guys out at the deadline. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a ton. I'll talk to you again soon.